Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns, tough loss. Offense played well, couple of pick sixes, and the Broncos end up with the win in Denver last night. Jameis Winston was kind of the full experience here. Finished the game against the Broncos with 497 yards passing, Browns single-game franchise record, only 20 fewer passing yards than Tom Brady's 517 back in 2011 for the most all-time on Monday Night Football. But Winston also threw 3 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes, making him the first player in NFL history to have 450 yards passing in a game with multiple pick sixes. Take a look, here's a look at the one. And just late over the middle is never a good place to go. Had plenty of time, and it was just read perfectly by Nick Benito, who's kind of a linebacker, rush hybrid guy, and he broke on the ball and made a great play. This one is just opposite hash mark to the sideline, just in the air too long, and that one was the one in the fourth quarter that kind of put the game away. So a couple of pick sixes in the game really kind of just did the Browns in, the 2 pick sixes. And Winston was visibly upset with that second pick six that he threw in the fourth quarter. Talked about the interception and the negative plays that happened yesterday.
It's tough for any team to win when you have 2 defensive touchdowns that the quarterback gave them. Defense played good, offense played well. I didn't do a great job. I got to play better. That's the biggest thing.
So, James, did you apologize to the team?
Yeah, I did. It was my fault. There's evidence. I had 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns by the defense, pick sixes. Yeah, I've been here before. I got to play better. I am.
Moving forward, what do you do to try not to do those kind of plays?
You get better. You make the play when it matters most. That's what great quarterbacks do. They make the play. I know I'm better than this. I know. I'm just praying for the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes. That's not me. A phenomenal game, offense, do some great things, but I mess it up.
And again, the degree of difficulty, especially on that last one, opposite hash mark to the sideline. Ball is in the air too long in an NFL game. And Jameis Winston has a absolute cannon, one of the best arms in the NFL, and he can't make that throw. And quite honestly, shouldn't try to make that throw. Just got to take better care of the ball and not try to make a play on every down like that, and those are the kind of things that he's known for. He's got the arm talent. If he can eliminate the turnovers, he is a middle tier, not a bottom tier. He is a middle tier starting NFL quarterback, and been able to do that consistently though. Kevin Stefanski today was asked about Jameis Winston's night against the Broncos last night.
Well, we threw the ball a lot, so there were a lot of opportunities. And obviously extremely productive in the pass game with a ton of yards. Certainly he wants to take care of the football in those moments. You're not going to play perfect at the quarterback position. He knows that. I know that. Ultimately, he wants to do anything in his power to help this team win, and that's going to be taking care of the ball. But he also had moments there where he was moving that offense and did a nice job.
I mean, the scouting report on him has always been, makes a bunch of plays, but also has a tendency to turn it over. At this stage in his career, can he turn that around, and how do you get him to, throw fewer interceptions?
I think every game, Scott, you go into it wanting to be productive in the pass game while taking care of the football. Obviously, Jameis understands that. He knows that. He's aware of what he needs to do for this football team. And it's always something that you coach. I don't think you ever stop coaching players, however many games they've played in this league. So he's a player that I believe can get better, and part of that will be taking care of the ball, but don't want to lose sight of some really good moments from him last night.
With that, let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, when I look at Jameis Winston last night, the degree of difficulty on a number of those passes, pretty high. I mean, it's, if the Russian judge has given him a 9.8 for degree of difficulty, and I think that's where he gets in trouble. His arm is so strong, he has such a belief in it, he thinks he can make every throw, and he just doesn't need to sometimes.
Well, yeah, check down is definitely his best friend. Here's what I see from Jameis Winston is that his ability to process information makes him want to make every throw. So when he sees a coverage, he knows where he's going with football. Then he has some post-snap issues, and he's so talented, like you said, with his arm. If he can limit those mistakes, but that's been kind of where Jameis is at, right? So, when you throw for 5,000 yards and you 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, you kind of get what you get with Jameis. So I think the big thing for them is they got to run the ball better. That's what's killing them.
Yeah, and again, the run game certainly wasn't there last night. Now, Jerry Jeudy, he was there, and he showed up against his former team. Jerry Jeudy's 235 yards receiving, the most for an NFL player going up against his former team in NFL history. Jameis Winston talked about Jerry Jeudy and what he saw from him last night.
He's phenomenal, man. We knew at the beginning of the week what time it was. He was hungry, he was preparing, and he was ready to get back here and show up and show out, and he did that. And it's unfortunate that we didn't get this win for him, but I'm happy that he had a career day. I'm happy that he did amazing, but he's an amazing receiver.
And Lance, to your point about running the ball, they threw the ball 60-some times. The targets are pretty evenly distributed with Jameis Winston.
Well, what you get with Jameis is that, it's kind of fits into what Kevin Stefanski likes to do. They're not worried about who the star receiver is. They're worried about getting it to the open guy. If you think about his first play, that was a high-low. Safety came up. They did a great job. Some of his routes that he ran are very good routes. But as a receiver with Jameis Winston, he knows where he's going with the football at all times. And the receivers also know the coverage. So they get excited when Jameis is in there because they know they're going to get the ball if they run the route. There's not a lot of improvising from Jameis, even though he did that pretty well yesterday. The thing that Jameis doesn't get enough credit for is his ability to process information. But like you said, the arm talent and the ability to process information gets him in trouble. Jerry Jeudy had a very high grade coming out of Alabama, and he's just starting to come into his own. This is what you see with him, his ability to catch the ball, release, catch at the catch point, run after catch. Very talented guy, and we're starting to see that.
Yeah, and again, it seems like he's getting more and more confident and more comfortable, particularly with Jameis Winston. Take a look at this. This is the most receiving yards in a game this season. And that guy named Jamar Chase, he's pretty good. And Jerry Jeudy right up there with him as Jeudy has the second 30-some yards behind Chase. And really, if you think about it, and you see Chase also has the third one, Lance, he could have had about 70 more because early in the game, Jameis overshot him on what would have been about a 65 or 70-yard touchdown pass, overshot him by about 2-3 yards.
Well, if you look at what, to have big games as a receiver, especially at the NFL level, you have to be able to play multiple positions. You have to be able to play inside and out. That's something he can do very, very well. He can run all the routes from inside and out. You got to be really good at the catch point for those 50-50 balls. You got to be really good run after catch. So, again, those three levels of receiver that I always talk about, release, catch point, and run after catch, he does all those very well. And I think what you're seeing more than anything is you're seeing confidence, and he has the confidence that now he's the number one guy. And I'm not sure if he ever felt like that. So when you get that confidence and the ball's coming to you, you do the things you're good at, and he's really good at all these things. This is the breakdown that most of us had on him coming out of college.
Yeah, and again, you heard about the drops. You've seen some of those, but it hadn't been. I've seen more examples of him having really good hands and making catches that are like, wow, that's a pretty good catch, than I have of him dropping footballs.
Well, yeah, and you get so many you know what? And once again, he's he's now the lead guy. He's never been the lead guy. So fatigue is going to fall in there. He's got to understand that he can't have off games. You can't have games where you only have 2 catches. I agree with you. You're going to have some drops. He's going to have to eliminate those if he wants to be a true number one. Now, is he a true number one? I think he can be. The only thing I would say is sometimes his size. When you see Jerry, he's not a huge guy, and you just worry about the NFL level, just the contact. But as a guy who can do everything, he's just got to protect himself, but he's got a lot of skill. And I think he's just kind of getting started. And I think they'll do more with him as they move forward.
You mentioned running the ball. I would think if you run the ball a little bit more effectively, that means you're going to throw the ball not 60 times, maybe 45 times at most. That makes Jameis Winston a little bit better just because you're not throwing it as many times, and the coverage isn't going to be as tight. They know you can run the ball.
Well, if you look at those interceptions, those pick sixes, the first one was the thing that bothers me is that there was only a 3-man rush. So the Browns were throwing the ball so much, even on first down, that the Denver Broncos went with a 3-man rush. They went with a 3-man rush. They had 4 linebackers and four defensive backs, so they kind of had it layered. And if you look at it, Jameis just gets locked in on the check down to Akins, and the kid makes a great play. The second one, they were in man coverage, 1 high hat, and he throws it behind. But again, if you're throwing the ball 50, 60 times, you're going to have some balls that aren't perfect. The Browns, you're right. Browns have to get to the point where they're throwing the ball 40 times and running it 30. And if they can get to that balance that they've always had, and I'm not a real big believer in saying they couldn't run the ball, they chose not to. And there's a lot of first downs, and people say, well, if you don't get any yards, those are body punches. And as an offense coordinator, you have to keep calling those to get those body punches, loosen that defense up for later in the game.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Ted.
Hi, Betty.
Oh, no, you wrapped yourself into a daze.
Holidays.
You need a break, so I got you Ohio Lotteries home for the holidays and Merry Money scratch-offs.
You could win up to $500,000 or $1 million. Oh, thanks, hon.
And they have games on the back. Has anybody seen my glasses?
Continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
3-9, obviously we're heading towards the #1 overall draft pick. Jameis Winston, is he the answer? No, but he's better than anything we had. But wouldn't you think, though, someone should get the blame for playing Watson for 6-7 weeks? If we would have played Winston, maybe something could have happened. We win a couple more games. But don't you think either our 2-time coach of the year, the GM, the owner, someone has to take the blame for playing this guy? I mean, something's got to go. You can't just go 3-14 and go to the end of the year and do nothing. I mean, you guys turn around and say you don't want to do in the coach again, but think about it. If you do it and it ends up being right, hey, you turn around and you win some games. But with this guy, you're not going to.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Lance, I think I've said in the past I thought they should have gone to Winston sooner. I get why they didn't. My guess is, and I don't know this, it's probably coming from above and everybody else kind of agreed. The one thing is, you can't they did that. That's fine. If you go back to Winston without him being significantly better than anything else you've got, shame on you, because now you've thrown away 2 seasons. Watson, rather, if you go back to Watson.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. First of all, it wasn't all Watson, but you've seen that they've had some success. So sometimes it's a square peg in a round hole, and that's what it seems to be like. I've never been on board with blaming Deshaun Watson just because there's so many other parts in football. But Kevin Stefanski has proven that he can have success with guys who maybe are kind of more of a system guys who throw from the pocket, improvise, stay on task in terms of progression, check down. Again, I don't want to blame everything on Watson, but there's more energy, more pace, more tempo, more flexibility, more rhythm right now with Winston in the game. Now, again, I will also tell you this, when they made the trade for Watson, everybody was on board, including myself. Mm-hmm. Watson just hasn't played to that level. So I don't really blame anybody. You go out and you take chances, and that's what life's all about. The Browns took a chance, and right now it just hasn't worked out. But when that trade was made, we all thought, me included, that it was a very good trade for a very high-level player. He just has not played that way.
Yeah, that I would agree with. The only thing that the only problem I have with it is it was ugly, and why did you think it was going to go from as ugly as it was to significantly better to winning games early? You were playing bad teams and losing to bad teams. That would be the only thing that I have about, they waited too long to move off of Watson. And I get it, $230 million, but, you pulled the plug on the season by sticking with that guy. All right, Devin McCourty on the Browns quarterback situation moving forward.
If you don't bring back Jameis Winston, as a guy in the locker room, I'm not even considering you bringing back Deshaun Watson to be our starter, because we couldn't get anything going at all as an offense, as a team. And then we get Jameis Winston in here. And again, the wins aren't picking up heavily. They're playing in a tough division. You have other teams in the division that are playing at a high level. And you're not winning every game, but like you said, we're competitive. We have a shot to win these games. How could we dare come back and not set ourselves up for that? And I just think other free agents on that team, you got to be looking at that. If you're a free agent on another team, even thinking about coming to Cleveland, those are the things you have to think about. If I'm a veteran that signed a contract and maybe have 2 years left, if we don't do those things, then I come back to a team knowing we don't care about winning. This is just a financial thing. And you kind of see that happening with the Giants right now, with guys speaking out about how a locker room should work, who should be playing, all of these different things. So I think it's a no-brainer for Cleveland to go out there and make sure they keep Jameis Winston. Even if you get a young quarterback, Jameis Winston in the locker room is better for your organization and your culture going forward.
And Lance, again, I can't argue with any of that. I'm not looking to blame anybody. Now, if you go and you do it again, then I got some issues with that. I mean, as I kept saying when they were doing it, how are you selling to the other 52 guys in the locker room that we're staying with this guy and this guy gives us the best chance to win? They see what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, when you look at what Deshaun Watson has, when he came in, it was just a mess from the start. And once again, it just hasn't worked out. Now, Jameis, he has been outstanding. And the thing I want everybody, for me, is they lost last night. And as good as he played, he still got to protect the football. And I think that should be the focus, is how do we get Jameis to protect the football? Because he plays so well besides those key mistakes. And there's a lot to be said about that, and once again, I don't really get into the money, but I see how that works. And if you invest that much money, but Kevin Stefanski's number one goal, and hopefully he has this voice, is to win. And all he's worried about right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that's really how a successful coach thinks. And, how much input they have on roster and all that stuff, that's kind of out of his control, it seems like. But Jameis Winston has been very good. And you can say whatever you want, but it's the same roster and they're playing better. And as much as I don't blame Deshaun Watson, they're playing better now. And that's just the way it goes. Sometimes it just doesn't work. The talents of one guy doesn't work in a system. And right now it just does not work. So they got a lot of tough decisions to make moving forward. And obviously the quarterback position, and I agree with that. Right now, it's obvious that Jameis Winston's playing better. So if you're going with Deshaun Watson, it's strictly financial, and that'll lose you the locker room very quick.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, it's Bob and Chillicothe. Heck of a game last night. Too bad we ended up losing. But before everyone starts jumping over Jameis, I know he had 2 pick sixes, but he had almost 60 pass attempts. He could not run the ball, and we asked that man to throw the ball down the field almost 60 times against probably one of the best DBs that we're going to play against. When have we ever had a quarterback that had the ability to throw like he threw and get the yards? We never felt out of that game until that last pick six. So let's give this guy some more reps. I'm not saying he's a long-term, but what else have we got? I think we got to hold on to this guy and try to figure something out, work with somebody, try to find a diamond in the rough. But come on, man. Over 500 yards passing, that's awesome. Just my thoughts. Go Browns. Woof, woof.
Yeah, and a lot of people have made the parallel of Joe Flacco, and it's an accurate parallel. Again, it's still Kevin Stefanski and now Ken Dorsey, if you want to call it, but it's Kevin Stefanski's offense. That's, again, I just keep coming back to, the only guy who hasn't been able to be successful has been Deshaun Watson. So what are you doing? I understand the financial parts of it, but don't put him under center if you're trying to win football games.
Well, that's what it really comes down to, and what you see out of Jameis Winston, and I've been really lucky to get to see him practice every day during the summer. What you see out there with Jameis, that's why for me the mistakes are okay, and that's what he has to work on, because Jameis practices the same way he plays in the game. He practices really hard. He practices with great passion. He has great intensity. He talks to everybody. He's engaging all of his receivers. So that being a good teammate, that's not phony from Jameis Winston. He's an awesome teammate, and he plays really well. And that grows on players. And when you're not winning, a guy like that is so important to your locker room. And you're right. At this point in time, it's got to be financially driven. But your job in the NFL, just like you can ask Jameis Winston last night. I'm sure the bottom line is they lost last night, and he threw 2 picks that cost him the game. He's got to figure out how to fix that. But he's also doing a lot of really good things, and I think that's important for him and the Browns moving forward. And right now, I mean, if Deshaun Watson is brought back, he can be in the mix. He's going to have to earn that spot, and Jameis makes it very tough. If Jameis protects the football, Jameis is really good. So hopefully he can work with that, and hopefully he can continue to grow and protect the football.
He did that for a stretch when he was playing for Sean Payton. Then he got hurt, and Saints moved on from Payton, and it wasn't the same. But he has had a stretch. I think it was 7 games. I think there were 5-2 or 6-2 or something like that, where he took care of the football for Sean Payton. Payton talked about that leading up to last night's game. Lance Reisland and I can step aside, take a quick time out. The other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Howard from Orange County. Just some thoughts about the game with Denver. I think the defensive backfield is terrible, except for Denzel Ward. That needs to be a complete redo. I think the offensive line failed Jameis Winston, and I like watching Jameis Winston play because you never know what's going to happen. He can be incredible, good, or bad, and I think it's a much better, more entertaining brand of football than putting DTR in or any other quarterback they have, so I would probably keep him next year. Also, the Browns need some consultant for the draft because most of their drafts have been terrible. I mean, look at the defensive backfield players. You can see it. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Great show. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Lance, the defense has not – we expected a lot more from it. A lot of the same players are back, and they haven't been good. The guy that concerns me most, and he didn't play real well early last night, is M.J. Emerson. I thought he was on the verge of becoming, a Pro Bowl type player. It hadn't been there this year. It just hasn't.
Well, 2 things that I've been, and I agree with you. Him and Newsome and all those guys haven't played, even Hickman, in the secondary. They just haven't played at the level that they played at last year. Watching, like, example yesterday, they hit Cam Sutton on 2 drags in a row, deep crossers. Those are really hard to cover. On the one that he caught, it was a 6-man pressure. So it goes to show you how tied in the secondary is, especially in your Schwartz defenses with that front 6, front 7. If they're going to bring 6, they got to get home to the quarterback because it's hard for those guys to cover all the way across the field. They've also played a lot more zone this year. And when you play zone, you can have some blown coverages, and they've had those. So just as I said last year when they got good at man coverage, it's because of what they were playing. So if they're going to be more of a zone team and kind of be a 50-50 team, and they've been close to that this year, then they're going to have to continue to work on that. M.J. Emerson is much better in man. He's much better when he plays press man, and he struggles in off man. He struggles in zone. He struggles in trail technique. He's a little handsy at times. But those are all things that, you can work on, but they got to kind of go back to their identity and to do what Emerson does best. And I think Newsome played a little bit better last night. The safeties have played better, but they haven't tackled very well. The pressure inside. There's been a lot of things that make a secondary good or bad. Last year, the pressure helped them. This year, they've been exposed a little bit because of their play and because of how the defensive line has played.
So this is PFF grades for last night's game against the Broncos. Highest graded player, it's not really that big of a surprise. Jeudy graded out at a 90.0. Devin Bush, 85.2. Hickman, 82.3. Newsome, who you mentioned, 81. And Elijah Moore, 77.7. So 2 wide receivers graded in the top 5 with Jameis Winston at quarterback.
Well, the thing that's going to really help Jameis, whoever the quarterback is, and you and I have talked about this for years now, Browns have to continue to run the football. And if they're going to go back to, I saw some more pin and pull last night, some guards pulling, they have to figure out, first of all, what they want their run game to be. Dorsey's a pass guy, so they have to make sure that they stay in his ear, make sure he runs the ball still, because throwing the ball 60 times is too much. And when you look at that first interception, like I said, the second one's on Jameis. The first one is 2, but they're dropping 8. It's hard to throw the ball when they're dropping 8. And the only reason you drop 8 is because you have no fear of the run game. And, I had a discussion earlier about the Browns have to be committed to the run game, even when the run game's not super successful. And it doesn't mean you have to stick with it and run into a wall. But when you get to that mentality where you're throwing it every play and those guys just to get to pin their ears back, that's going to make it tough on everybody. Balance is the key for a guy like Jameis Winston because he's so talented, but he gets a little gun, he's a gunslinger. So if you can keep him at 35 to 40 range, he can be very successful. He's got to learn to check the ball down, continue to work, and he will because those are his practice habits. He's a great practice player.
All right. Denzel Ward played really well. Myles Garrett played pretty well as well. Garrett on the mindset following the loss to the Broncos.
It's tough. Any loss is tough. And, we were in position to win, and we didn't capitalize at the end of the game, and that's on us. We have to make more plays on defense. There were some more plays out there, and I know we'll see it tomorrow, and that'll be tell to tape for us. But it's a combined effort, and can't put all of it on either side. We just have to be better overall.
And in terms of heading into this game, you were adamant about we need to win every single game to win out. So what's the mindset now after you come out here with a loss?
It's not like I'm going to start saying we need to start losing. We're still trying to win. Doesn't matter what the record is. We got to start going out there and spoiling people's dreams. Got to start making people feel how we're feeling right now. So the mission doesn't change. We're still out there to win.
And Lance, he touched on that. Number of these games, even earlier in the season, they were there at the end of the game. They didn't make the plays that you need to make to win. That's the sign of a good football team makes plays at the end of the game to win. Therefore, a team that doesn't make plays at the end of the game to win is a bad football team.
The thing that first of all, your record never lies, right? You are what your record says you are. I'm a big believer in that. My dad was a big believer in that. But I will say this, it's not what you say, it's what you do. And what I like about the Cleveland Browns right now is that they're really, really struggling, but their effort is there. Now, tons of mistakes, tons of issues, and I agree with all that. That needs to be cleaned up, and that's unacceptable. But 2 things I liked about what Myles Garrett said. First of all, it's about winning. It's not about draft picks. It's not about any of that stuff. That's for all of us and everybody else. But those guys got to focus on winning, practicing hard, and getting better every single day, maximizing each day, winning the day. That's got to be their goal. And if they do that, they'll be successful. But it's, again, when a coach loses a team, you can see it. You can see it on film. You can see it when you watch the game. Stefanski hasn't lost these guys. They just have not played, and they have not gelled, and they have not made the plays. Like you said, like a bad football team. And at times they are a bad football team, and they don't have to be. And a lot of this comes with the expectations we all had coming into the season, and they haven't met those. So you are what your record says you are, but they are still competing, which tells you Stefanski still has a locker room.
Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
After tonight, there's no doubt we need to get rid of Winston. Go get a veteran like Carson Wentz to hold the fort. Draft someone mid-round that's going to be at least 6'5", maybe that guy Drew Allers from Penn State, and groom him for a year or two. And find a way to just deactivate Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we can't get rid of him. Keep paying him, but never play him again. And we need to get some defensive backs. Get rid of Newsom, he stinks. Get rid of Jedrick Wills, he stinks. Get rid of Ken Dorsey, his offense is pathetic. And reinstall Stefanski's offense. And, we got to start creating an identity and then draft according to that identity.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Lance, couple of things. I'm not on board with Carson Wentz. I've seen that. Drew Aller, I like. Drew Aller has a couple years of eligibility left, and I saw him play a lot at Medina, and I think he's staying at Penn State or entering the transfer portal. I think he's eventually a guy that could get drafted a lot higher in a year or two, so I don't think he's coming out. But that's the type of quarterback I like. He has as strong an arm as anybody, and just hasn't gotten the opportunity at Penn State to do what he could do. But I would much rather have Jameis Winston rather than Carson Wentz. Much rather.
Well, it's funny. I've been on the end of those calls and fans, and that's a level of frustration that you understand. And I'll be honest with you, when fans are frustrated when I was coaching or when everybody's coaching, I was always okay with that because fans have expectations. I never wanted to coach or be anywhere where there wasn't expectations to win. And that's where the Browns are at right now. They're expected to win, and this fan base is very heavy for them to win. I agree with you. I'm not on board with Carson Wentz. I like Jameis Winston. And here's why I like Jameis Winston, because he's a great teammate. He can make all the throws. He can do what they need to do. But I do agree with the caller in terms of how you need to draft, and you need to find that identity. And for a while, they had that identity, right? They ran the ball, play action, super aggressive on defense. Now they've been tinkering with that a little bit. And I use the Steelers and the Ravens as all the time. And I use Peyton Wilson and these guys that they draft. It's not about who's the best guy maybe at a position. Who's the best guy for you and what your system is and what your locker room wants to be and what your culture wants to be. And that's really what it comes down to. The Browns need to figure out which direction they want to go, and they're going to have to make some hard decisions. The bottom line is Deshaun Watson is really is up in the air because of the financial commitment to him. Right now, the Browns are playing better. They have to figure out and they have to stick to their plan and not waver from it moving forward.
Yeah, and they tried to remake the offense, and it didn't work. It hasn't worked. So we'll see. We've talked about Jerry Jeudy's improvement since Jameis Winston over. It really goes all the way across the receiving corps. Elijah Moore yesterday. 8 receptions, 111 yards, first ever 100-yard game as a Brown. David Njoku, I think he had 17 targets in that game. That's kind of what happens when you throw the ball 60-some-odd times. Jamari Thrash made plays. Michael Woods made plays. The bottom line is when a quarterback is making receivers, pretty much all of them, better, that's the guy you should kind of think about building the offense around.
Well, especially if that's so. We've all seen what happens, and I've done this in my career where you try different things because of what is going on. And I've said this before: you can only fix what you know as a football coach, and that's kind of where Kevin Stefanski's at right now. It's his job on the line, his reputation. So they're kind of getting back to what he does with the play action, Even though Dorsey's calling the plays, the last couple weeks you see a lot of what Kevin Stefanski has done over the last couple years. Yes, and that's the bottom line, is just like with Joe Flacco. Winston's playing at a high level. If he doesn't have those turnovers last night, he has a historically good Monday Night Football game, and he played really well. And the bottom line is, for me, though, is they lost. And you have to take the good, but the bottom line is you lost. And I'm never a believer in that you learn from a loss, or you get better from a loss. But you learn from a win, and you gotta, and there's no moral victory, especially at the NFL level. These guys get paid a lot of money, and they get paid to win. So, I think Jameis Winston right now, you can see, this is kind of what we thought the Browns would be like. They would be in every game. They would be functional. And once again, this is for me, this has been a square peg in a round hole. It just hasn't worked with Deshaun Watson. I love the trade when they made it. It just hasn't worked. What they're going to do moving forward is going to be very interesting to all of us. But I think Jameis Winston has to be a part of those plans regardless. Yeah, I'm with you. The only thing I ever learned from losing is I didn't like it. That's about the only thing you ever learn when you lose. It's something. All right, one goal for the rest of the season for each NFL team from PFF. For the Browns, you'll love this one. Block better. Assuming Cleveland has a new starting quarterback, even a new running back, its offensive line will simply need to play at a higher level. Won't be possible to revamp all 5 positions. Joel Bitonio remains a question mark, 62.5 PFF overall grade. And Bitonio's a guy, and they mentioned that's a career low. Bitonio's a guy that I think is a little bit more beat up than we know, because when he's not beat up, he's one of the best guards in football. Well, yeah, and they haven't done a lot. You know, he's had some wear and tear this year, but they haven't pulled him, right? That's really what he's good at. He's good at pulling. He's good at getting to the second level, and they haven't done a lot of that this year. Now, they're getting back to it a little bit this year. I still think the game of football is an offensively driven game. The Browns have a lot of really good defenders. I think the secondary's had a tough year, but I think those guys will work. Browns still need a playmaker. You know, Elijah Moore is a good outside receiver. Jerry Jeudy's a good outside receiver. They need an easy yards guy. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a receiver. You know, you can get a receiver. You know, you'd like to get a guy who's sudden and twitchy. If you look at like an A-chain with Miami, you got to find a guy who can get you easy yards, both in the backfield and out in the flanks. And that usually comes with a slot guy. They have a really good tight end. They got to figure out what they're doing at left tackle, but I think they have the left tackle. I think it's DeJuan Jones. I think they got to get him in shape. He's got to get healthy. I think Conklin, I'm super impressed with Conklin this year. I thought he's been outstanding in his return, and I think he's got a lot of good football in him. You know, Teller, Bitonio, those guys are getting older, so they're going to have to draft some guys. You know, they have Zinter, but they're going to have to, you know, the thing that's really hurt, in my opinion, is they've been unable to, like, get solid depth because of the Watson trade. That's where they got to start looking in the draft. They got to get, in my opinion, they got to get a game changer with that first pick. They got to get a guy who you don't have to block anybody. He can go get 6 for you. Yeah, and they really haven't had that. I can't tell you the last guy that you felt that way about, that the Browns had. Well, you know, it's, you know, for me, I'll show my age here, but, you know, a guy like Eric Metcalf would have been so good in this offense, this style offense, right? Guy can catch out of the backfield, run between the tackles, do a bunch of different stuff. But that's the kind of guy they need. They need a positionless guy. And there's, on every call sheet in the NFL, high school, college, there's a touch guy. And however you get those touches too, if you look at Jamar Chase, they toss him the ball, they run reverses with them, they throw it in the slot, they do a lot of different things with them. But what Jamar Chase does really well is he runs deep and they throw it to him, and he's better. They got to find a guy like that who's just better. And until they get that, it's just hard to go 10, 12 plays. Every time the Browns get the ball, they got to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, they end up turning the ball over on downs or kicking a field goal or punting. And that's, you got to get a guy who just, you know, you watch the film, you go, wow, we did nothing right, but we scored. Those guys are important in the game of football. Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance. As always, thanks for having me. Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. cleveland.com does some really good film and video breakdowns. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tom Withers from the Associated Press. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
Head.
Hi, Betty.
Oh no, you wrecked yourself into a daze.
Holidays.
You need a break, so I got you Ohio Lotteries home for the holidays and Merry Money Scratch-Offs.
You could win up to $500,000 or $1 million. Oh, thanks, hon.
And they have James on the back. Has anybody seen my glasses?
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
You know, everybody wants to get Clint Kubiak. Even I was for trying to get Clint Kubiak. But after this season, I pretty much think I have an answer for everybody who's interested in Clint and the offense that he might bring. One, the league has figured out the Shanahan, Kubiak, McVay scheme, and even Stefanski scheme. They figured it out. All the defense in the league have it figured out. It's almost like we need a scheme, or it has to evolve again. The Shanahan, Stefanski, McVay offenses all have to somehow evolve because it's just not good enough to win with scheme anymore. You have to have the talent to improve your offense.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tom Withers from the Associated Press, covers all the Cleveland sports. Tom, I don't think you ever really win with scheme. You know, the Shanahan isn't having success because everybody's beat up in San Francisco. But I think there's a level of truth. You have to evolve. Everything is – that system just keeps evolving. There's another evolution of it. And if Kevin Stefanski seems to coach that a lot better than the stuff we've been trying.
Yeah, I think it's hard to really, peg anything down when you're coming off of a night where your quarterback throws for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, or 6 if you want to count the 2 that he threw to Denver. But listen, it's all about players making plays. This team has been through, the Browns have been through so many different iterations this year, right? They had a line that was kind of beaten up and missing a couple of starters. Nick Chubb was coming back slowly from injury. Deshaun Watson and his injury. We've made the quarterback change. They didn't score points. Now they're scoring points. It feels like, every step forward is 2 steps or 3 steps back or 2 sideways. So I think it's really difficult to kind of get into too much into the weeds about whether the system works or not. I think Kevin Stefanski has proven over the last 4 years that he knows what he's doing offensively. I think he made a nice move in handing the play call duties off to Ken Dorsey. That seems to be working out fine. And let's be honest, everybody saw what they saw over the first 7 or 8 weeks, and the quarterback play was just not up to par. So I don't care what scheme you're running, who's in the backfield, what wide receivers you have. If the guy that's touching the ball on every single play, other than the center, is not up to standards, then you're going to struggle. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk about the Browns quarterback situation moving forward.
This is Joe Flacco all over again. And Joe Flacco's final game as a starter was a disaster for the Browns. He threw multiple interceptions. They lost to the Texans in blowout fashion. But the theory that Sims and I have had all year long, Devin, is they didn't bring him back because they knew they couldn't bring him back, because if you bring him back week 1, they're going to be chanting, "We want Flacco." the fans loved Flacco, and the fans are going to love Jameis. And I think you can get Jameis Winston at a fairly affordable price. And the 3 interceptions last night actually will help you. You're not going to have a land rush for Jameis Winston. There's not going to be a team out there that needs a quarterback that has in big, bold letters at the top of their list, we need Jameis Winston. Cleveland needs Jameis Winston, and they need to turn the page from Deshaun Watson to Jameis Winston, and they can afford to pay Watson $46 million to not play, get Winston for a reasonable price, and make him the guy. And you're going to have moments like that. You're going to have pick sixes, but you're going to have excitement, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to be relevant. And most teams end up in prime time because they win. The Browns will be a draw next year because they have Jameis. And if you're not going to win the Super Bowl anyway, and only 1 out of 32 is going to, you might as well be fun. The Browns are fun. You want to build your fan base nationally? Be fun. The next best thing to be good is be fun.
Tom, I get what he's saying. I don't care if they're fun. I want them to win. And I think you can. Yeah. I think Kevin Stefanski is the kind of coach that can win with Jameis Winston. I think he can make it so that don't throw from the opposite hash to the far sideline because these guys are really fast in the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Dave. And I think, listen, he's a 30-year-old quarterback. He is who he is, right? This has been his story since Florida State. He can look great 1 minute and not so great the next. But I'm with you. I think there's still some time to maybe mold him into the quarterback that he needs to be, maybe a little more conservative, maybe surround him with a couple more playmakers. I mean, I think it was a real bright last night that Jeudy shined like he did on that kind of stage. Elijah Moore had arguably his best game in 2 seasons with the Browns. There's still some issues with David Njoku, who I'm still not sure is 100% healthy. But yeah, I think Jameis Winston at the very least, and listen, I'm with you, Dave. It's not about being fun or exciting or playing on prime time. It's about winning games. I don't think Florio is really, reading the room very well in terms of what this Cleveland fan base has been through. We've seen fun, we've seen exciting, we've seen Johnny, we've seen Baker, we've seen everything in between, and it's time for this roster to win because, as we talked about, over the last 3 years, when you're wasting some of the prime years of Myles Garrett's career, the same could be said for Joel Bitonio, Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, on down the line, some of the pillars and cornerstones that this team thinks it has on its roster. You don't want to go too much further down the road. So I'm with him as well, though. I think at least, if nothing else, Winston gives you a viable option going forward into 2025. We still think at this point that Deshaun Watson is going to be in the mix in some capacity. Personally, I would move on from him. I think that's probably a sentiment that's gaining some momentum in the building. However, you got that financial component of it with, do $92 million over the next 2 years. The salary cap hit is even beyond that. So I think if there's another thing to look at from last night, Dave, is that if the Browns wanted to see what that exit strategy could look like with a star quarterback, just look at the other sideline in the Denver Broncos, who were strapped with that Russell Wilson deal, weren't sure how they were going to get under it, decided just to swallow hard and eat about $50 million or so, and drafted Bo Nixon. And here they are early December in the playoff mix. I think the Browns would gladly trade for that scenario.
Yeah, and Tom, think back to it. The 3 guys they were going hard after were Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers. None of those worked out. None of them worked out. There's a lesson to be learned there.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned here. And unfortunately, the Browns have had to learn them the hard way over the years, right? With mistakes, whether they be in drafting or in free agency. So listen, I will say this as well. There's definitely been, much like last year with Joe Flacco, there's been an infusion of excitement through the building. And that's, in some ways, that's an indictment on Deshaun Watson and the fact that he was not the leader that the Browns thought he was going to be, never mind the quarterback on the field that they thought he was going to be. So, guys rally around Jameis. And I agree with Florio from the standpoint that, he brings an exciting brand of football, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to see this team win and win soon.
So Jerry Jeudy has taken off since Jameis Winston took over as the Browns starting quarterback. In fact, he is the leading receiver in the NFL since Week 8 when he took over. 614 yards, 5 games now. Sutton, a little bit less in one more game, 569. McConkey, the rookie, Jamar Chase, you see, has Jerry Jeudy the last 5 games has more than him, and Puka Nacua. Tom, I expand it more globally, and you touched on it a little bit. Elijah Moore has looked really good. You saw Michael Woods get in some action. You've seen Jamari Thrash. All the receivers seem to look better with Winston. That tells me you should probably look at that guy as your quarterback.
Yeah, obviously, what we saw with Deshaun early on, and I don't know how much of it was related to the shoulder. I'm sure some of it was. I know some of it has to do with the fact that he'd only played in 12 games or whatever it was coming into the season since 2020 because of his holdout, because of the suspension, because of injuries. I mean, he was just not poised in the pocket, Dave. We saw that. We saw that he would panic and he ran himself into some sacks, and the line didn't do a great job of protecting him either, and they had some injuries up front early on. Jack Conklin is back now. Things have settled down a little bit there, other than the left tackle situation. So yeah, I think they have to take a hard look at him now, Dave. I think that's what, over these last 5 weeks, I think that's been very evident to everyone that, where would this team be had they decided to make the switch early on? And I still don't believe one word out of Kevin Stefanski when he said that, playing Deshaun during those times gave the team a better chance to win. We all knew what we were looking at. Everybody's watched enough football in this town to know what good quarterback play looks like. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think they take a real hard look at it. We don't know. It doesn't sound like this draft class is real good. Obviously, there's always guys that emerge from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds that you don't foresee right now. But by and large, it's not a great draft class. Free agency market is still a little bit wide open. We're not sure what's going to happen there. But yeah, I think Jameis Winston at least gives them something else to consider as they go into 2025.
Tom Withers from the Associated Press and I step aside, take a quick time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason when we return.
Ted.
Hi, Betty.
Oh no, you wrapped yourself into a daze.
Holidays.
You need a break, so I got you Ohio Lotteries Home for the Holidays and Merry Money Scratch-Offs.
You could win up to $500,000 or $1 million. Oh, thanks, hon.
And they have games on the back. Has anybody seen my glasses?
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Where's Chubb? Chubb looks fine. He doesn't look like he's hurting anymore, and he looks like he wants to play. But that's 2-time Coach of the Year. What is he resting him for? That way, at the end of the year, he'll be fresh when he goes to another team. Is that what he's resting him for? The guy looks fine. Make some plays to get him the ball so he runs the ball better. He is running behind the 3rd-string offensive line. So why does he make these decisions like that? Let him play.
Well, here is what Nick Chubb's done through the last 6 games. 14.5 touches, 3 yards per carry, almost 46 yards from scrimmage. So that includes passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Tom, he doesn't look hurt. He doesn't look injured, but he doesn't have the explosion and the power. And again, I don't know the complete extent of the knee. My guess is they're going to try to find a way to keep Nick Chubb in Cleveland next year and beyond.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I would agree with you, Dave. It is pretty clear, I think, to all of us who have watched Nick Chubb over the last few years, that burst is just not there. There's not that acceleration once he gets to that 2nd or 3rd step to the line. It's not there. And granted, there haven't been big holes for him either. I was encouraged by an early run last night, I think for 8 or 9 yards on one of the first series that looked more like the old Nick Chubb. I still think he's a very valuable guy to have in short yardage situations, near the goal line especially. I was a little surprised he wasn't in there. I think it was the drive where they ended up getting the touchdown pass to Njoku, but I thought, I think it was 1st and goal at the 4. I was like, maybe take a couple whacks with Chubb here, and they didn't. But, we asked Stefanski about that today, and he said that they're trying to balance it out a little bit, keep both guys fresh. They like Jerome Ford. I like Jerome Ford. I think he does some good things when he gets his hands on the ball. I also think he's good in space when he catches the ball. So I think part of this, obviously, and I understand the caller and some of the fans' frustration out there. You want to see Nick Chubb carry the ball 25 times a game. Dave, I don't think physically he's ready to do that yet. And I think that's why the team is being smart here in bringing him along. He's going to, finally in this next offseason, not be rehabbing the knee, but just doing his normal conditioning work and doing the Nick Chubb 650-pound squats and all the other superhero things that he does. So, we may see a different type of player in Nick Chubb next year, but I think at this point, I think they're doing what's right by the team and what's right by Nick Chubb, and that's kind of conserving him down the stretch here. I mean, why would you want to have him go out there and get beat up when you're a 3-8 team, 3-9 team now, not going to the playoffs this year? So I have no problem with how they're using him at this point.
No, and you also want Jerome Ford to kind of develop and see him in some as well. So this is kind of interesting, and I tend to agree with this. Everybody's talking about the pick sixes, and again, they were part of the loss. But the defense was not good. Again, it just has not been what we've expected it to be. They had a 32-31 lead, let them march right down the field and take the lead back. They also had a 90-yard drive and a 93-yard touchdown pass on a 3rd and 11. Tom, when you look at the defense, what have you seen? I think Ward has played really well. They'd be talking about Ward as the best cornerback in football if this team was a playoff team. And I think Garrett has played really well. The guy that concerns me the most is M.J. Emerson. I honestly thought he was on the verge of becoming a Pro Bowl type cornerback, and man, it just has not been there.
You must have heard a conversation I had with Scott Petrak earlier today, because that's the guy we singled out, was 23. I mean, it looks like they were picking on him last night, and he's kind of getting himself caught up in traffic. There's times where these teams are running these crossing routes and such over the middle, and it feels like Martin gets taken out, and it's almost like a young NBA player who's trying to figure out how to get through high pick and rolls and such, and he's just not doing it. And I've been very disappointed in him. His tackling seems to be okay, but by and large, to your point, Dave, other than Denzel Ward, this secondary just has not delivered. I think we've seen some good flashes out of Grant Delpit, who's managed to stay mostly healthy. Juan Thornhill was out again last night. We've seen a lot of rotation between him and Ronnie Hickman. Greg Newsome flashes in moments, but not enough. Rodney McLeod, I think, serves you real well in the locker room as a leader. Obviously, he had a couple touchdowns earlier this year too, so there's been some production there as well. But yeah, this defense and just its inability to, not only to stop teams, but they're giving up these huge plays. I did the math earlier. They've now given up 48 plays of 20 yards or more and 12 plays of 40 yards or more. So those are two bad stats right there. And then obviously you give up the 93-yard touchdown. Fortunately for the Browns, they were kind of able to match that, if you will, coming back with the 70-yarder to Jeudy. But big plays. Didn't get the kind of pass rush I think that they hoped to get last night. Now, and you tip your hat to the Broncos. They did a nice job of having Nix, get the ball out, changing protections for him, what have you, chipping on Myles Garrett, who saw, plenty of double and some triple teams again last night. So, but by and large, the defense has been quite a disappointment this year, especially after as good as they were a year ago.
So an advantage here, you also cover the Guardians and the Cavs. So we have some Cavs news, and I want I want to know what you think. Kenny Atkinson named Eastern Conference Coach of the Month after leading the Cavs to a 17-3 record to start. You see Rockets coach, Western Conference Coach of the Month. But, Tom, I don't know how you ask anything more of Kenny Atkinson than what he's done.
Yeah.
What's been the main difference from what you've seen in covering him?
Well, obviously it's got a lot to do with Kenny and the fact that he's come in and his charge from the get-go was to figure out, how do we make this core four work well together? How do we get Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland playing together at a high level? He's figured that out. How do we get Evan Mobley more touches? How do you make your offense run through Evan Mobley? Kenny Atkinson has figured that out. How do you blend both Mobley and Allen defensively? He's got them both playing back as his soccer goalies, as he likes to call them. So he's done a fantastic job. And I think there needed to be, and with all due respect to JB Bickerstaff, who had a lot to do with the building of the culture here, it is a good culture here. And I think the biggest component here, Dave, in my mind, is that you have Donovan Mitchell with all that pressure and all that distraction, if you want to call it that, of the contract off of his shoulders now. The fact that he wanted to stay here, that he's committed to being here. When your best player is buying in, it's easier for your coach to get his message across. But But to your point, I think Kenny Atkinson has been a nice breath of fresh air. I like his candor. The other night he talked about after losing in Atlanta, he came home and he said to his daughter, "I'm not sure we're going to win again." And I know that's hyperbolic or whatever, but he's very real and he's a real straight shooter. And I talked to a couple of the players, before one of the Guardians playoff games, I happened to run into, Donovan Mitchell and Tristan Thompson and Darius Garland there to throw out the first pitch. And that was before the season even started. And I asked for their opinion on Kenny, just their first impressions. And what came across from all three of them was very straight shooter, a real hoops junkie, a guy that really relates to players well. And again, no knock on JB Bickerstaff. I just think Kenny Atkinson was the right coach at the right time for this team.
And you know what? They're a whole lot of fun to watch. Tom Withers, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Tom.
My pleasure. Nice talking to you, Dave.
Tom Withers, make sure you check him out. Always great coverage of all the Cleveland sports for the Associated Press, and we certainly appreciate Tom's time. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.